The lock clicked with finality, its sound echoing through the humming server room. My phone was gone, confiscated, no way to call for help. Maybe a night alone will fix your attitude, Dominic sneered through the small window in the heavy metal door. Behind him, I could make out the shadows of Trent and Jaden, their laughter floating through the crack. Think about your place in this company while you're in there, Trent added, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Maybe tomorrow you'll remember who's in charge. The light from the hallway vanished as they walked away, leaving me alone with rows of blinking servers. The room's temperature was kept at a constant 62 degrees to protect the equipment. I wasn't dressed for it in my thin blouse and skirt. They knew that. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees to my chest, as their footsteps faded. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. This wasn't just about the cruel prank or the humiliation. It was about 6 months of systematic undermining, of watching my ideas being stolen, of being interrupted in meetings, of working twice as hard for half the recognition. The company holiday party replayed in my head just hours ago, when I'd finally spoken up after Dominic presented my database optimization solution as his own. The stunned silence as I'd stepped forward. The way his face had twisted in rage. "You're nothing but a troublemaker," he'd hissed when we returned to the office. "And I've had enough." I glanced at my watch. 9:43 p.m. The cleaning crew wouldn't arrive until 6 a.m. The thought of spending 8 hours in this cold, sterile room made my chest tighten. But then my eyes drifted to the central terminal, still logged in under Dominic's credentials. He'd been monitoring server performance when he decided to teach me this lesson. He'd left everything open. Before I continue with what happened next, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about standing up for yourself when the whole world seems determined to push you down. Drop a comment if you've ever had to deal with workplace bullies. Trust me, what happens next might give you some ideas, though I wouldn't recommend following my exact playbook. My name is Ziv, not Ziva or Zivia, just Ziv. I'd graduated top of my class in computer science 4 years ago, with dreams of changing the tech world. What I didn't expect was entering an industry where I'd constantly have to prove myself. I'm naturally quiet, preferring to let my work speak for itself. Maybe that's why they thought I was an easy target. I'd joined Next Gen Software Solutions 6 months ago, lured by promises of innovation and growth. The reality was different. A boys' club masquerading as a modern tech company. I was the only woman on the development team, and they never let me forget it. My first clue should have been Dominic's reaction during my interview when he realized I wasn't a male Ziv, as he'd assumed from my resume. The flash of disappointment in his eyes quickly masked with a tight smile. "Interesting name for a girl," he'd said, not bothering to hide his surprise. Despite his initial reaction, my technical skills had impressed the hiring panel enough to bring me on board. What I didn't tell them was my full background. Before this job, I'd spent 3 years as an ethical hacker, contracted by major companies to test their security systems. I'd been one of the best, until a similar toxic culture at that firm drove me to start fresh. I stared at the terminal, my mind racing with possibilities. 8 hours, unrestricted access, no oversight. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I considered my options. The sensible part of me said to just wait it out, report the incident to HR in the morning, and start looking for another job. But the part of me that had been swallowing insults and watching my work being claimed by others for months had different ideas. I logged out of Dominic's account. Using my own credentials would leave a trail, but I knew better. From my bag, I pulled out a small USB drive, my emergency kit, that contained specialized tools for penetration testing. Old habits die hard. I never went anywhere without it. With practiced movements, I bypassed the security protocols and gained root access to the system. The servers hummed around me, almost encouraging as I began my exploration. First stop, the company's internal messaging system. There it was, a private channel titled Code Bros with Dominic, Trent, Jaden, and 4 other male developers as members. My heart pounded as I scrolled through months of conversations. Ziv asked another question in the meeting today. Someone needs to tell her to stop trying so hard. Did you see what she was wearing? Trying to distract us since she can't code for shit. Dominic, brilliant presentation on the database solution. Much better than her original garbage proposal. I felt sick reading their messages, but one particular exchange from last week made my blood boil. Dominic, the Robertson project promotion is coming up. Keep Ziv busy with bug fixes so she doesn't have time to shine. Trent, already on it. Assigned her all the legacy code maintenance. Jaden. She'll never make senior developer at this rate. Dominic. That's the point, genius. I had been working 16-hour days trying to keep up with my regular work plus the extra assignments they'd been piling on. Now I understood why. Digging deeper into their private communications revealed something even more disturbing. Dominic had been systematically taking my code submissions, making minor modifications, and presenting them as his own work to upper management. The promotion track I'd been promised during hiring was being built on my ideas, with someone else's name attached. My hands trembled, but not from the cold anymore. I needed evidence, something concrete that couldn't be disputed, something that would make sure they never did this to anyone else again. I created a secure folder on my drive and began copying conversations, timestamps, original code submissions, and the modified versions Dominic had presented. Each file was damning on its own. Together, they told a story of targeted harassment and intellectual theft. The clock on the wall read 11:28 p.m. I'd barely scratched the surface of what I could access. As I contemplated my next move, I stumbled upon something unexpected: financial records for client projects. Normally, these would be restricted to accounting and management, but someone had been careless with permission settings. What I found made me gasp out loud. The Robertson project, our biggest client, was being systematically overbilled. Hours were inflated, resources doubled, and the extra money, where was it going? I followed the trail through a maze of transactions, each one carefully obscured but not enough to hide from someone with my skills. The extra funds were being diverted to an external account under a shell consulting company. The name on the registration documents? Dominic Porter Consulting Services. He wasn't just stealing my work, he was stealing from the company and its clients. I was so engrossed in my discovery that I almost missed the sound, a faint click from the direction of the door. My heart stopped as I quickly minimized windows and pulled out the USB drive. Had they come back to check on me? I huddled in the corner, pretending to be asleep, as the door creaked open slightly. Light from the hallway spilled into the room, illuminating a portion of the floor. Through barely open eyes, I could make out a silhouette, smaller than Dominic or the others. "Hello? Is someone in here?" a woman's voice whispered. I remained silent, unsure if this was some kind of trap. "I know someone's here." The system alerted to activity in this room. The door opened wider, revealing a woman I'd seen around the office but never spoken to. "Oh, you're the new developer, right? What are you doing locked in the server room at midnight?" I hesitated, not sure if I could trust her. In the dim blue light of the server room, I could make out her features now: dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, glasses perched on her nose, and an expression of genuine concern. "They locked me in," I finally admitted, my voice hoarse. "Dominic and his team said they wanted to teach me a lesson about my attitude." Her face hardened. "I'm Raya. I work in cybersecurity upstairs." She stepped fully into the room, letting the door close behind her. I got an alert about unusual access patterns. Now I understand why. I scrambled to my feet. "Are you going to report me?" Raya studied me for a long moment. "That depends on what you're doing." The look in her eyes told me she might be an ally, but I'd been wrong about people before. I decided to test the waters. "Did you know Dominic is stealing client funds through fake billing?" Her eyes widened. I suspected something was off with the Robertson account. "Show me." I pulled out my emergency USB again and plugged it back in, showing her the trail of financial documents I'd uncovered. As she leaned over my shoulder, examining the evidence, her breath caught. "This is serious criminal activity," she whispered. "But why are you looking into this?" The whole story came pouring out: the harassment, the stolen ideas, the systematic undermining, culminating in tonight's punishment. Raya's expression grew darker with each detail. "They did the same thing to me last year," she finally admitted. "I was supposed to be on the development team, but after I corrected Dominic in a meeting, I was suddenly transferred to cybersecurity, isolated, away from the main projects." She pushed her glasses up. "I thought I was alone." "You're not," I said, "and neither am I, apparently." For the next hour, Raya helped me navigate deeper into the company's systems. Her security credentials combined with my hacking skills made us an unstoppable team. We uncovered more victims. 3 other women had left the company in the past year alone, all after conflicts with Dominic's team. "They're going to suspect something if they find us both here in the morning," I said, glancing at the time. "It was nearly 2 a.m. Raya nodded. "I need to go back upstairs and delete the security alert that brought me here. But first, She pulled out her phone and took photos of several key documents on the screen. Insurance. Why are you helping me? I asked as she prepared to leave. She paused at the door. Because last year I was too afraid to fight back. I've been regretting it ever since. Her eyes met mine. What's your plan? I honestly hadn't thought that far ahead. Gather evidence and report it to HR? Rhea's laugh was bitter. HR is in Dominic's pocket. His sister-in-law is the director. She shook her head. You need something bigger, something public, something they can't sweep under the rug. After she left, I sat in silence, considering her words. The server hummed around me, the only witness to my growing determination. I couldn't just expose Dominic. I needed to dismantle the entire toxic system he'd built. I turned back to the terminal and began a new search, looking for board members' contact information, company bylaws, and whistleblower protocols. If I was going to do this, I needed to understand the full battlefield. That's when I found it, buried in old emails between Dominic and the CEO. A conversation from before I was hired, discussing the upcoming government contract bid worth millions. We need to demonstrate diversity in our technical team for the federal requirements, the CEO had written. Find a female developer with the right credentials. Just make sure she doesn't interfere with our actual work. Dominic's response made my stomach churn. Already interviewing candidates. Found one with an ambiguous name who looks perfect on paper. She'll be our diversity hire, and we can keep her busy with minor tasks while the real team handles the contract. I was never meant to succeed here. I was hired specifically to be a token, to check a box for a lucrative contract. My technical skills, my education, my experience, none of it mattered to them. I was just a woman-shaped prop in their corporate theater. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Tears welled up again, but this time from pure rage. I'd been working myself to exhaustion, trying to prove my worth to people who had decided I was worthless before they'd even met me. I closed my eyes, letting the fury wash through me. When I opened them again, my vision was crystal clear. This wasn't just about seeking justice for myself anymore. This was about changing the system. I created a new folder on my USB drive labeled Operation Reset and began working methodically. Over the next few hours, I compiled evidence, created backups, and developed a comprehensive picture of the corruption running through NextGen. The financial fraud was just the tip of the iceberg. There was harassment, discrimination, bid rigging, and client deception at every level. Around 4 a.m., my phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. It's Raya. Deleted the security alerts. Found something else you should see. Check your email. Used company VPN to mask it. I accessed my personal email through a secure browser and found a message with a large attachment. Raya had sent me personnel files, exit interviews from former employees, all containing redacted complaints about Dominic and his team. She'd also included a note. HR deleted these from the system, but I keep backups of everything. Good luck. With this final piece, my evidence was complete. Now I needed a strategy, a way to release this information that would guarantee action. Going to the CEO was pointless. He was complicit. The board members were mostly old friends of the founder. The legal system would take too long, and corporate lawyers would bury the case in paperwork. I needed something immediate and undeniable. As I contemplated my options, I heard footsteps in the corridor outside. My heart pounded as I quickly closed everything, removed my USB, and returned to my corner, pretending to be asleep. The door opened and the light flicked on. Rise and shine, princess, Dominic's voice boomed. Night in the dungeon teach you anything? I blinked up at him, feigning grogginess. Trent and Jaden flanked him, all three wearing identical smirks. Behind them stood Carson, the newest member of their team, looking uncomfortable. I asked you a question, Dominic pressed, his tone hardening. I stood slowly, my legs stiff from the cold and hours of sitting. Yes, I said quietly. I learned a lot. Good, he nodded, clearly satisfied with what he perceived as my broken spirit. Then you can start by apologizing to me and the team for your behavior at the party. I looked at each of them in turn, noting their expectant faces. They were waiting for my submission, my defeat. I'm sorry, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. Dominic's smile widened, louder, so everyone can hear you. I'm sorry, I repeated, raising my voice slightly, that you felt threatened enough by my abilities to lock me in a server room overnight. The smiles vanished instantly. I'm sorry that you're so insecure about your own skills that you need to steal my work. Dominic's face reddened. You little, And I'm especially sorry, I continued, stepping toward them, that you were stupid enough to leave me alone all night with access to everything I needed to expose you. The color drained from Dominic's face as he glanced at the terminal, still showing the login screen. What did you do? He whispered. I smiled, a cold expression that made even Trent step back. I guess you'll find out. Carson looked between us, confusion evident on his face. What's she talking about, Dom? Before Dominic could respond, his phone began ringing. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression turned to pure panic. It's the CEO, he said, his voice cracking. Why is he calling me at 6 a.m.? Dominic stepped away to take the call, his face growing paler with each passing second. The others watched him nervously, glancing between their leader and me. I remained perfectly still, my expression neutral, despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. We'll be there immediately. Dominic stammered before ending the call. He turned to me, eyes narrow with suspicion and fear. What have you done? I tilted my head slightly. Maybe you should check your email. All four men pulled out their phones at once, the synchronized look of horror that spread across their faces as they read whatever had been sent would have been comical under different circumstances. This is illegal, Dominic hissed, waving his phone in my face. You can't access private company information, says the man who just imprisoned me overnight in a secure area against my will, I replied evenly. Interesting definition of illegal. You have there. Jaden grabbed Dominic's arm. We need to go to this emergency meeting now. The entire executive team and board are waiting. As they turned to leave, Dominic pointed a finger at me. This isn't over. You're fired. Actually, I said, holding up my phone that Raya had returned to me along with a message from the CEO's assistant. I've been specifically requested at this meeting too. I smiled. Shall we walk together? The journey to the top floor executive suite was silent and tense. In the elevator, I stood calmly, while the four men shifted nervously, exchanging worried glances. Carson looked completely lost, continuously checking his phone as though searching for answers. The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area where Raya was already waiting, along with several other employees I recognized from different departments. They all wore the same expression, a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. What's going on? Carson whispered to Trent, who ignored him. The CEO's assistant, Miranda, appeared from behind the heavy mahogany doors of the conference room. Everyone is waiting. Please come in. The scene inside would be forever etched in my memory. The long conference table was filled with board members, executives, and legal representatives. At the head of the table sat CEO Nathan Walsh, his face a mask of controlled fury. A large screen on the wall displayed various documents and chat logs, the familiar evidence I had collected overnight. Sit down, Nathan ordered, pointing to the empty chairs on one side of the table. Dominic and his team took their seats nervously. I moved toward the other side, where Raya had saved me a spot. Miss Ziv, Nathan addressed me directly. I've spent the last hour reviewing the information anonymously sent to every board member, executive, and key client of this company. He gestured to the screen. Would you care to explain how you came by this evidence? Every eye in the room turned to me. This was the moment that would define everything. I took a deep breath. I came by it because your development team manager, Dominic, locked me in the server room overnight as punishment for speaking up at the company party. My voice remained steady. While trapped there, I discovered evidence of ongoing discrimination, intellectual property theft, and financial fraud. Whispers erupted around the table. Nathan raised his hand for silence. That's ridiculous, Dominic interjected. She's making this up because she couldn't handle constructive criticism of her work. I smiled slightly. Check the building security logs from last night. Check the keycard access to the server room. Check the cameras in the hallway outside it. You'll see exactly what happened. Nathan nodded to someone at the end of the table, who began typing rapidly on a laptop. Furthermore, I continued, I've documented a pattern of behavior targeting not just myself, but every woman who's worked on the development team over the past 2 years. The evidence includes stolen work, deliberately sabotaged projects, and a coordinated campaign to force women to quit or transfer. These are serious accusations, said an older woman I recognized as the head of the board. But what about these financial documents? Are you suggesting actual criminal activity? Before I could answer, Dominic stood up. This is absurd. She broke into secure company systems. Whatever she found was obtained illegally. Actually, Raya spoke up for the first time. As the head of cybersecurity, I can confirm that no systems were broken into. All access was gained through legitimate credentials that were carelessly left logged in or through security vulnerabilities that my team has been warning about for months. The IT director, who had been checking security footage, looked up from his laptop. The camera footage confirms Miss Siv's story. She was locked in the server room at 9:43 p.m. last night and not released until 6:02 this morning. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Is it true? Nathan finally asked, looking directly at Dominic. Did you lock an employee in a restricted area overnight without access to food, water, or proper facilities? Dominic's composure cracked. She needed to learn her place. She was undermining my authority, questioning decisions in front of clients. His outburst confirmed everything. Several board members physically recoiled at his words. What about the financial irregularities? Pressed the legal representative. The Robertson Project billing shows systematic fraud amounting to nearly $500,000. All eyes turned to Dominic again. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he realized he had no way out. It wasn't just him, I said, drawing attention back to myself. This was a coordinated effort by Dominic, Trent, and Jaden. Carson is new. I don't believe he was involved in the financial aspects, though he participated in the harassment. Carson's eyes widened. What? I never! The private chat logs say otherwise. Raya interrupted, putting a particular conversation on the main screen that showed Carson making derogatory comments about my appearance. For the next hour, the meeting continued as each piece of evidence was examined and verified. Technical experts confirmed my code had been stolen and presented as Dominic's. Financial auditors validated the billing fraud. HR was forced to acknowledge the pattern of complaints that had been systematically buried. Throughout it all, I remained calm, answering questions precisely and professionally. Inside, though, I was burning with satisfaction as I watched the carefully constructed world Dominic had built crumble around him. Near the end of the meeting, the head of the board addressed me directly. Miss Ziv, the company owes you an apology for the treatment you've endured. What would you like to see happen here? This was the moment I'd been waiting for. My revenge wouldn't be shouting or threats. It would be systematic, just like their abuse had been. 3 things, I said clearly. First, immediate termination of those involved in fraud and harassment. Second, a complete review of all code contributions with proper credit restored to the original authors. Third, a structural change to how teams are managed, with clear reporting channels for misconduct that don't go through HR. The board members looked at each other, then back to me. That seems reasonable, the chairwoman said. Anything else? I smiled slightly. Yes. I'd like to be considered for the now vacant position of development team manager. Nathan blinked in surprise. You want Dominic's job? I want the job he prevented me from earning. I corrected. My qualifications are in my file, including the 3 years I spent as an ethical hacker and security consultant that I didn't initially disclose when applying for an entry-level position. The room erupted in conversation again. Dominic looked like he might be sick. You set us up, he whispered, finally understanding. You played helpless all night, knowing what you were doing. I leaned forward slightly. Maybe a night alone in the server room really did fix my attitude. 2 hours later, I watched from the lobby as Dominic, Trent, and Jaden were escorted out of the building by security, carrying boxes of personal belongings. Carson had been placed on probation pending further investigation. The company's legal team was already in contact with law enforcement regarding the financial fraud. Raya appeared beside me, a satisfied smile on her face. Well played, she said quietly. I didn't expect the coup de grace with asking for his job. It wasn't about the job, I admitted. It was about making sure they could never claim I wasn't qualified for it. So what happens now? You're really staying here after all this? I turned to her with a determined expression. The board approved my 3 conditions. They're announcing a complete reorganization of the development department. I'm not just staying, I'm helping rebuild this place from the ground up. Raya nodded appreciatively. From locked in a server room to running the department in less than 24 hours. That might be a company record. The best revenge isn't just about taking someone down, I said, watching as Dominic's car pulled away from the building for the last time. It's about building something better from the ashes. 1 month later, I sat in what used to be Dominic's office, now completely redesigned. Gone was the intimidating dark furniture and closed-door policy. My team, now balanced with talent of all genders, worked collaboratively in the open space I'd created. The Robertson Project was back on track, with proper credit given to all contributors. The toxic culture was being systematically dismantled. one policy at a time. As I reviewed the latest code submissions, an email notification appeared on my screen. The federal contract, the one I'd been hired as a token to help secure, had been awarded to us. Not because of a diversity checkbox, but because our newly structured team had submitted the most innovative solution. I smiled to myself, thinking of Dominic. He was facing criminal charges for the financial fraud, his career in tech effectively over. Trent and Jaden had been blacklisted throughout the industry as word of their behavior spread. Sometimes, revenge isn't about an explosive moment of triumph. Sometimes, it's about a complete transformation that ensures your enemies can never again create the conditions that hurt you. If you've ever faced workplace bullying or discrimination, remember my story. Your value isn't determined by those who try to diminish you. Sometimes, the people who lock you in a dark room don't realize they've just given you access to exactly what you need to change everything. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Share your own experiences in the comments. You never know who might need to hear they're not alone. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't what you destroy, but what you build in its place.